Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholz. This year we're going to continue a trend that we started in the previous years where we read longer stories over a longer period of time. And this, we're going to start with B, The Princess of the Dwarfs by Anatole France. Anatole was as you can tell by his pseudonym, a French author, and really well regarded, one of the epitomes of the French men of letters, and in fact, in 1921, he won the Nobel Prize in Literature. As one review for this particular book has stated, Anatole France is not, like Hans Christian Andersen, a recognized fairy tale writer, which from our point of view seems a pity, because he has the light touch which does not crush the gossamer or brush the dust from the wings of the butterfly. And really can't get a better recommendation for a tale than that, can you? As we read through this story over the next many weeks, you'll notice that it does fit into our existing style very well here at the Folktale Project. While the story itself may be around 100 pages, each of the individual chapters is rather short and tight and tells its own neat little story. And so, without any further ado, this is Chapter 1, Tells of the News that a White Rose Brings to the Countess of the White Moor. Setting on her golden hair a hood spread with pearls, and tying round her waist the widow's girdle, the Countess of the White Moor entered the chapel where she prayed each day for the soul of her husband, killed by an Irish giant in single combat. That day she saw on the cushion of her praying stool a white rose. At the sight of it she turned pale, and her eyes grew dim. She threw back her head and wrung her hands, for she knew that when a Countess of the White Moor must die, she finds a white rose on her stool. Knowing that the time had come for her to leave this world, where she had been without such a short space of time a wife, a mother, and a widow, she went to her room, where slept her son George, guarded by waiting women. He was 3 years old, his long eyelashes threw a pretty shade on his cheeks, and his mouth was like a flower. Seeing how small he was and how young, she began to cry. "My little boy," she said in a faint voice, "my dear little boy, you will never have known me, and I shall never again see myself in your sweet eyes. Yet I nursed you myself, so as to be really your mother, and I have refused to marry the greatest knights for your sake." She kissed a locket in which was a portrait of herself and a lock of her hair, and put it round her son's neck. Then a mother's tear fell on his cheek, and he began to move in his cradle and rub his eyes with his little fists. But the Countess turned her head away and fled from the room. Her own eyes were soon to close forever. How could they bear to look into those two adorable eyes where the light of understanding had just begun to dawn? She had a horse saddled and rode to the castle of the Clarides, followed by her squire Freeheart. The Duchess of the Clarides kissed the Countess of the White Moor. "What good chance has brought you here, my dear?" "It is an evil chance which has brought me. Listen, dearest. We were married within a few years of each other, and we became widows by a similar misfortune. In these times of chivalry the best die soonest, and only monks live long. When you became a mother, I had already been one for 1 or 2 years. Your daughter B is as beautiful as day, and nothing can be said against my son George. I like you, and you like me. For I must tell you I found a white rose on the cushion of my stool. I'm going to die. I leave my son to you." The Duchess was aware of the news that the white rose brings to the ladies of the house of White Moor. She began to cry, and promised in her tears to bring up Bee and George as sister and brother, and not to give anything to one without giving half to the other. Then the two ladies put their arms around each other, and went to the cradle where little Bee slept under light blue curtains as blue as the sky. Without opening her eyes, she moved her little arms, and as she opened her fingers 5 small pink beams appeared to come out of each sleeve. "He will defend her," said the mother of George, "and she will love him, the mother of Bee answered. "She will love him," a small, clear voice repeated. The Duchess recognized it as that of a spirit that had long lived under the hearthstone. On her return to her manor, the lady of the White Moor divided her jewels among her maids, and having anointed herself with odorous essences and put on her most beautiful clothes to honor that body which will rise again on the day of judgment, she laid herself down on the bed and went to sleep forever. And that is Chapter 1 of Bee, Princess of the Dwarves, and we get an introduction, quite an introduction to George and Bee, whom we will follow through this tale. This is Dan Scholz of the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As always, thank you so much for listening.